Hello, everyone. Welcome into Above My Pay Grade. My name is Eric. President Biden gave his address on the profits of these oil companies. And I wanted to walk you through that video and see what you guys think. So let's get over there. Let's see here. Give me a second here. Let's watch this together.
Well, good afternoon. This is a very short statement, but a consequential one in my view. Putin's invasion of Ukraine in March set gas prices soaring literally around the world, not just here, but around the world. And because of the action we've taken since then, gas prices have actually come down, going into the Strategic Petroleum Reserve here at home in America. They're down more than $1.20 since their peak.
Okay. Strategic. What's the word he used there? Strategic Petroleum Reserve. And if you look that up, it's for times of war, not to lower the price. So, yeah, it's because of the action they've taken short term, it's lowered the price of gas. And guess what? Probably made the problem worse because as they lower the price of gas, people don't want to invest money because their profits aren't as great. It's the price that's the signal that tells consumers or sorry, producers that they should produce more.
This summer, and they've been falling for the best part of the last 3 weeks. In June, the average price, not the most common price, but the average price nationwide was over $5 a gallon. Today, the average price for a gallon of gas is $3.76. That's adding up to real savings for American families, the difference between those prices. And this difference makes a difference in a difficult time. Americans across the country have stepped up to do the right thing, but not everyone stepped up. The oil industry has not. Has not met its commitment to invest in America and support the American people. One by one, major oil companies have reported record profits, not just a fair return on for hard work. Every company is entitled to that, a fair return.
Who who is the arbiter of fair return? Um, he's going down a dangerous road here. He's saying the government's in charge of the arbiter of what is a fair return. And as I've asked before, why weren't the oil companies making this kind of profit in 2019? You know what I mean? I mean, if they could charge more, why didn't they do it in 2019? And if he's going to blame greed, what was the magic greed button? When did it start at the war or when? Because it's a supply and demand, and it's not really oil; it's the ability to refine it. And yet, uh, he pretends that it's not a supply and demand question.
For the work they do, innovation they generate. It means, but I mean profits so high it's hard to believe. Now, the second quarter, the profits were really high, but the third quarter, last week, Shell announced that it made $9.5 billion in profits for the third quarter. 9.5 billion. That's almost twice as much as it made in the third quarter of last year. I think that's something. You think that's incredible? I thought that's as good as high as it's going to get. Then along came Exxon. Exxon's profits for the third quarter were $18.7 billion. One quarter, $18.7 billion. Nearly triple what Exxon made last year. And the most in its 152-year history. It's never made that much profit. In the last 6 months, six of the largest oil companies have made more than 100 billion. 100 billion. And we had a little discussion about this, the three of us and others. 100 billion in profits.
Why don't you open up the free market to compete with these folks? In the free market, somebody would come along and see these profits that they're making and say, hey, I could do it for cheaper, or I could provide competition. It's the government that's choking out that competition. And it definitely Russia made it worse, but it's government that's causing the supply.
In less than 200 days. That's not bad. And here's why this matters. I think it's outrageous what the size of the profit. Here's why it matters. These companies were making average profits they've been making by refining oil over the last 20 years instead of the outrageous profits they're making today. And if they passed the rest on to the consumers, the price of gas would come down around an additional 50 cents. If they're investing their profits at historic rates in their U.S. operations, then America would be producing more oil today, and prices would be down even further. But rather than increasing their investments in America or giving American consumers a break, their excess profits are going back to their shareholders and they're buying back their stocks, so the executive pays are going to skyrocket. Give me a break. Enough is enough. Look, I'm a capitalist. You've heard me say this before. I have no problem with corporations turning a fair profit or getting a return on their investment in innovation. But this is remotely what's happening. Oil companies' record profits today are not because they're doing something new or innovative. Their profits are a windfall of war, the windfall from the brutal conflict that's ravaging Ukraine and hurting tens of millions of people around the globe. At a time of war, any company receiving historic windfall profits like this has a responsibility to act beyond their narrow self-interest of its executives and shareholders. I think they have a responsibility to act in the interest of their consumers, their community, and their country. To invest in America by increasing production and refining capacity, because they don't want to do that. They have the opportunity to do that. Lowering prices for consumers at the pump.
The lady in the red jacket there, she's the Secretary of Energy, I believe. She has multiple times said they are trying to shut down fossil fuels within the next 10 years. So he's asking them to literally throw money in the toilet.
If they don't, they're going to pay a higher tax on their excess profits and face other restrictions. My team will work with Congress to look at these options that are available to us and others. It's time for these companies to stop war profiteering, meet their responsibilities to this country, and give the American people a break and still do very well. The American people are going to judge who's standing with them and who is only looking out for their own bottom line. I know where I stand, and I want to let you, I'm going to hear more from me about this when the Congress gets back. Thank you all very, very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, so he kind of faded off at the end there, but um, I heard a good analogy the other day that if there was a recently happened in Florida, there was a hurricane that hit, people's power was out, and people needed to charge electronics, so they go to the store to buy a gas power generator, and the demand is astronomical through the roof, and there's not enough to go around. So the store operator, instead of selling his generators for $300, he jacks up the price to $1,200, $1,500. And you might look at that scenario and say, he is profiting off of this hurricane. But if the government were to come in, which is kind of true, but if the government were to come in and say, you're not allowed to do that, you must charge fair market price, which, by the way, like he said a fair price or fair profits. A very dangerous road to walk down, as if the government is the arbiter of what's fair. Very dangerous. But if the government were to come in and tell this store owner, hey, you can't charge more than $300, he'll sell out within 12 hours. All of them are gone. Great. Majority of the people in Florida don't get a generator. But if he was allowed to let the free market work and he charged $1,500, and everyone else around who had a generator is charging $1,500, you know what would happen in the surrounding areas, surrounding states around Florida? They'd start looking, hey, I can spend $50 in gas, get down there, put the generator in the back of my truck. I can make a profit of $800 on this generator. So generators would start driving, essentially, to Florida to make this profit, and supply would go up, and the price would come down. And to pretend that these companies are magically greedy is really sad. I don't put it past these companies to be greedy because I think that's what capitalism is like making the best profits for your shareholders. Um, but more supply needs to come online. More competition needs to come online, and it's not a cheap business to get started in. And the government is the one that kind of keeps that path really narrow and hard to start, in my humble opinion. Let me know what you think in the comments below. See you guys in the next one. Peace.